Beverage containers can be a big contributor to litter. Look at this. So close to the trash can and yet missed. It gets really bad in the summer. Well, if a proposed bill becomes law, this garbage just might be worth its weight in gold. Every day, people buy hundreds of beverages, from soft drinks in bottles to beer in cans. Many of them are non-returnables, and for many people, it's just as easy to throw them on the ground as it is in the trash. Unless, of course, they get 5 cents a bottle for bringing them back, as Representative Ronald Reimer wants to do.
These are products that are primarily non-biodegradable. They're not going to break down. They're going to be here for hundreds of years, and we're just building a layer of bottle and broken glass and cans on top of a layer of broken bottles of glass and cans. And I think the people are now at a point where they're willing to try to do something to solve this problem.
Reimer expects opposition from bottling companies who perhaps don't want to be burdened with red tape requiring deposits. But he says he'll be meeting with bottle and can manufacturers this summer to see if he can convince them to do what dozens of other states have already done. Bella Shaw, Action 4.
This wheat field in Caddo County near Hinton is ready to be harvested. The wheat has matured a little earlier than normal, but because of the recent rains, it's going to be a while before a combine will be rolling through this field. As far as cotton farmers are concerned, some of them may have to replant. They've received just too much moisture, according to Herb Constein.
In the past 2 days, we've had almost 5 inches of rain, and it looked like my crop's going to be okay. I had it up, but some of these here that the crop wasn't up has been silted under, and the plant can't come through.
And those are the fields that will have to be replanted. Some fields receive so much moisture the soil washed out. Some farmers here may have to replant, but they're not going to complain too much because it's been about a year since they've received needed moisture. As luck would have it, the timing was off a little. Ben McCain, Action 4 near Hinton in Caddo County.
How would you like to wake up in the morning to this? Well, that's exactly what happened to a number of Oklahoma City residents this morning, as last night's rains backed up into their homes. In some places, it was 3 feet deep. A number of homes in the Crown Heights addition near Northwest 36th Street were affected. This isn't the first time the sewer system is overloaded because of rain. The city says it's just one of those acts of nature when the rain comes down too hard, too fast.
What we're faced with here is rainwater in the main in greater quantities than the pipe is actually designed to carry off. Now what happens is in the older areas you have a larger likelihood of rainwater getting into the main. A large percentage of it comes in through what we call the lateral line, which is the line from the house to the sewer itself. It lies in fairly shallow ground, and when that ground saturates, any leaks, cracks, or bad joints or connections or whatever on that lateral line will allow rainwater to get into it.
If someone does have a backup problem and wonder if the city is liable, he should contact the city's legal department. In the meantime, surely all this rain must have had some effect on the state's water supply, and Ben McCain covered that story. Surely all this rain must have had some effect on the state's water supply, and
the District 2 school board dispute may be settled behind these doors tomorrow. District Judge Rita Silk-Nauni will decide how many bogus votes were cast in the May 19th election between Dr. Armin Start and Hugh Long. That was the second election won by Long, but successfully challenged by Start. A third election is set for Tuesday. That may not be necessary. Today, attorneys for Long presented the names of 3 voters declared invalid in that May 19th election, saying all 3 are residents of District 2 and cast legal votes. If that proves to be the case, Start's challenge would be nullified, and Long declared the winner. Judge Naifeh ordered the 3 voters in question subpoenaed to court tomorrow morning. The subpoenas issued this evening, and one of them delivered to this home on the northwest side. If the resident of this home and the other two voters live within the District 2 boundaries, then the election will go to Hugh Long. Judge Naifeh will make that decision tomorrow morning. Larry Otis, Action 4, Northwest Oklahoma City. The District 2 school board election was not to be decided at the polls, but rather here at the courtroom. It boiled down to whether 3 voters cast valid or bogus votes in the May 19 election. The man to make that decision, Judge Raymond Naifeh. The judge heard testimony this morning from the 3 voters in question. The 3 were in a group of 20 that had apparently voted illegally in the election by writing down wrong addresses at the polling place. Dr. Armin Start caught those irregularities and challenged the victory by Hugh Long. However, attorneys for Long pointed out each of the voters listed the wrong address by mistake. Judge Naifeh agreed and declared the 3 votes valid, giving the school board seat to Long by 1 vote. Long is satisfied with the victory, but has other thoughts about Start's appeal and the court hearing.
Ridiculous. That's all I've got to say. And I wouldn't want to go through it again, I know that. It was unnecessary and expensive and a bunch of foolishness.
Dr. Armin Start, the loser in this courtroom decision, doesn't think the appeals process is too foolish. He plans to do it again, this time to the state Supreme Court. Larry Otis, Action 4, District Court.
Okay. The 450 disabled veterans who came to Oklahoma City are worried. They fear that budget cuts by the Reagan administration could hit them hard. The veterans don't want to see medical care and job programs go down the drain, but the political tide is running against them. The veterans have already targeted Reagan's budget director as public enemy number 1.
David Stockman has a mandate from Ronald Reagan, President of the United States, to reduce the budget. Now, David Stockman has never had any great love for the veteran by reason of previous pronouncements that he's made when he was a congressman. He always felt, as an individual congressman, that the VA budget was too much, too big, and for the wrong people. He doesn't care too much for disabled veterans unless they're a quadriplegic or a paraplegic or totally on their back.
Gallion says it's important to have issues that affect disabled veterans brought before the public. The veterans presented an award to KTVY for being the Oklahoma station that provided the most in-depth coverage of those issues. Bill Ross, Action 4.
There was enough word out on the floor that the members are satisfied. The members in here were satisfied today. And the committee, of course, is satisfied. We had some long sessions in the plant, and we're satisfied with the agreement. The executive board approved of it, I believe, Thursday. So we're happy with the agreement. They needed health and safety conditions improved in the plant, and they needed production standards corrected. And those were the issues that were addressed during the strike, and those issues were corrected.
So far, I have received no copies of the Joint Conference Committee reports on appropriation, which means we're not any closer now than we were when we recessed to a meaningful understanding of these appropriation bills. Apparently, what Speaker Draper and the chairman of the Appropriation Committee expect us to do is to come back here next Monday and vote on these bills sight unseen on $1.5 billion of appropriations to this state.
House and Senate leaders have spent much of their recess trying to hammer out the final details of a huge school bill totaling over $113 million more money than last year's bill. Today, the vote was in favor of a $1,600 pay raise for teachers. And members of various teachers' organizations seem pleased with the $1,600 figure.
I think it probably will be at or near the regional average. It's, as you know, I think it's very difficult to compute. But I think with the schedule that we have and with the methods now that are guaranteed in the bill, I think that those districts which are, of course, negotiating will have an opportunity to set the kind of a salary schedule that will be most advantageous to them. And with the $1,600, which is guaranteed per teacher now, there will be a chance it'll have a good salary increase next year.
House members will be the first to look at the $1,600 pay raise, and chances are they'll pass it. After all, it does have the backing of major teachers' organizations and unions. Well, the only question now is, will the governor go along with the $1,600 raise, or will he veto it, feeling that it's too much money? And of course, even if the bill becomes law, it'll be up to each individual school district to decide how much they want to give each individual teacher. They can negotiate with them formally or informally, depending on the district. And they can give some teachers less than $1,600 and some more. Bella Shaw, Action 4 at the state capitol.
There are some people who like winter, and why shouldn't they? It may be cold, but it's pretty. What can be more serene than children playing in virgin snow on a January day with that clean crispness to the air?
Okay, and also with our fork.
Summer, on the other hand, is ugly. It makes normal-looking people ugly by making them sweat. I like the people who say it's not the heat, it's the humidity. Ever hear anybody complain about the humidity when the temperature's 65? Now, there are certain activities that have to be curtailed in the summer, like a walk through the woods. If you want to take one, you got to get a bulldozer to precede you to get rid of all of the undergrowth. But who'd want to walk around out here anyway with all the other things crawling around? You talk about ugly, look at these guys. They're not around in the winter, but as soon as it warms up, there they are like a reoccurring nightmare. So as I was saying, summer is just an ugly season. There's nothing attractive about it. So I guess we're just going to have to suffer through as best we can till fall. Ted Brown, Action 4. Yes. Enough people filed through the doors of Civic Center Music Hall tonight to nearly fill it to the rafters. The event was the homecoming of Oklahoma and the kickoff for the state's Diamond Jubilee celebration. Some would say it's the music that's kept the production healthy after 38 years. Jubilee underway, expected to do even better than the 1979 one. Ted Brown, Action 4 at the Civic Center Music Hall.
6 weeks ago, Rita Silk-Nauni was released from McCaleb State Prison on an appeal bond. Her attorneys are appealing her 150-year sentence for manslaughter and shooting with intent to kill convictions. When Silk-Nauni was released, her supporters said they would help her ease back into a normal life. Well, apparently, she's now ready for that return to normalcy. Mrs. Silk-Nauni will attend summer classes here at Central State University in Edmond. She'll be taking courses in the humanities, art, and swimming. And most of the students we spoke with said they would welcome Rita as a fellow pupil while her case is being appealed.
I don't have anything against it, really. Since she's out on appeal, and since there was so much controversy surrounding that case, I really don't have anything against her going to the same school I'm going to.
I don't know if she's guilty or not, but right now nobody said whether she's guilty or not, so if she wants to go to school, I think that's fine.
I have a qualm with the fact that our courts have let her out on the street, but I don't have a qualm with her, since they have let her out on the street, going about her own way. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that.
And I suppose if she was in one of my classrooms, I'd probably take note of the fact that she was there. But as my own personal behavior or personal success in the class, I don't think it would have that much of a bearing on it.
Silk-Nauni will only be taking 6 semester hours this summer, but it'll be her first big step back towards a normal life. Scott Wallace, Action 4, Edmond.
As far as I'm concerned, Mr. Saunders' public relations attitude is poor, to say the least. He could have probably solved my problem with at least courtesy, which he did not. He was very rude. At least trying to understand my problem and being willing to sit down and see if there was not a way that he could solve the problem. I don't think you're talking about excuse me, I don't think you're talking about a lot of money. He said, well, if we do this for one, we have to do it for all. But how many youth organizations do we have?
One final.
This is what the Oklahoma State Fair looks like the 1 month out of the year when the State Fair Board brings the Midway rides to town. Rod Link has been the exclusive Midway operator for the State Fair, and city leaders have recently raised the question of whether or not the city can make more money if bids for the Midway were allowed to be submitted from other Midway promoters. Ward 8 Councilman Bob Frank is wondering, does the Fair Board have to be more open with its records and bidding for the Midway month? And he went to State Fair manager Sandy Saunders for an answer.
They have taken the position that that's none of our business, none of the business of the legislators, none of the business of the city council. What they do out there during that 30-day period of time, and I completely disagree. I have asked the city municipal councilor's office to give us a written opinion on, number one, whether or not during this 30-day period the city can expect the open meeting laws to be complied with, and making available information to interested citizens and the city council, certainly.
Yesterday we talked with State Representative Maxine Kinchlow, and she told us Sandy Saunders told her it was none of her business when it came time to looking at the Fair Board contract. Today, Councilman Frank tells us he got the same response. But we're starting to wonder, isn't the entire city's business, since the city pays the State Fair Board $300,000 a year for the upkeep of the fairgrounds? Once again, we tried contacting Sandy Saunders, and once again, he couldn't be reached. Ed Stewart, Action 4 at the Oklahoma State Fairgrounds.
This is a Lita. You won't see many of them on the road because there aren't many of them made.
But the Lita Corporation is hoping that there will be more of them on the road in Oklahoma City soon. They want to move the manufacturing plant here. Right now, the fiberglass cars are made at a rate of about 1 per month. But the company hopes that if the plant is moved here, they can make at least 1 a week and perhaps expand to 1 a day. They call it a luxury car with a classic design. Some people call it ugly.
Well, some people have said that it's so ugly it's cute. A lot of people think it's beautiful. The beauty is in the eye of the beholder, as they say. One thing it is, it's noticeable. The car stands out on the street when you're driving by.
The manufacturers of the car say it will get 43 miles per gallon, and at $9,000 to $12,000 it's competitively priced. But they don't plan to mass produce the Lita. They want to keep it a classic. Charles Schnitzer, Action 4.
Most of the flooding in Bristow was reported here at the Evergreen Mobile Home Park. It started raining about 11 o'clock. By 2 o'clock, flooding was reported. By 3 o'clock, people started evacuating. Personal belongings were damaged. In some areas of the mobile home park, the water got as high as 4 feet. Some cars were destroyed, but no one was killed or injured. That's what counts, according to Valeria Bridgeford.
Out here safe, and I'm just lucky because my little girl's bed, it's down on the floor, and if there would have been any water in the trailer house, she wouldn't have made it.
At the Sooner Motel, the water seeped into rooms. In fact, some floors even collapsed. Some people had all their belongings soaked. The manager said it was a miracle no one was killed. Residents who live along the creeks in Bristow are hoping the rain will stop. They don't want to experience another flood tonight. Ben McCain, Action 4, Bristow. Farmers in the state will be glad to hear the news. A bill that would cut in half the tax paid by heirs on estates worth $250,000 or less has been approved by the Senate and the House. Many farmers say this is a step toward saving the family farm. Senate President Pro Tem Marvin York agrees.
With this type of exemption, you have really given the relief to the people who have been concerned about having to pay the taxes in order to keep the family farm. You have raised the amount of the exemption to an amount that would probably eliminate having to pay any kind of inheritance tax at all on about 95% of all estates.
A representative for Farm Bureau says his organization is pleased the bill has been approved.
It does not go as far as we would like to go, but it does repeal the gift taxes, and it cuts the rate on lineal and collateral heirs 50% up to a total estate of $250,000. But this bill does a very good job of giving us some tax relief, not only for farmers, but for business people and other people that have acquired estates that go beyond a job and a home.
The measure will go into effect next year. Our state exemption will then be about equal to the federal estate tax exemption. Ben McCain, Action 4.
The Springlake arcade fire began in the wee hours of Sunday morning. Several dozen firefighters battled the blaze for several hours before containing it. The $250,000 structure was a total loss. Arson investigators had been pessimistic about finding out how the blaze got started, but a tip from the arson hotline led them to question a park employee about the fire. Today he confessed to torching the building. Investigators then arrested 33-year-old Jerry Mims on second-degree arson charges. If convicted of the crime, Mims could face a $20,000 fine and 25 years in jail. Fire Marshal B.W. Scott says he had a lot of help on this quick arrest.
The men in my office, I would like to give them credit. They have done one super job on this. They've stayed on top of it ever since the fire occurred. We were able, through some very good phone calls through our arson hotline, to develop more information that assisted us, and I would like to take this opportunity to thank the citizens that came forward with the information over our arson hotline.
Arson investigators say they'll now have to do some more checking on Mims. They want to determine if he had anything to do with another suspicious fire, which was set right next door to where he lives. Scott Wallace, Action 4 in Springlake.
Oklahoma is one of the few states that taxes people for being sick. The House has passed a bill that would take the sales tax off prescription drugs. It's estimated that would save taxpayers some $10 million a year, but it wouldn't become law until July 1st of 1982. For that reason, Senate President Marvin York sees little point in passing the bill now.
Let's come back in January when we'll know a little bit more about the specific problems that we're going to have with regard to the cuts that are coming to the state of Oklahoma from the federal government, which could very realistically amount to several hundred millions of dollars. To repeal this sales tax now, at a time when we don't know exactly what our problems are going to be, but at a time when we know certainly that we are going to have problems, would be to operate in the dark, so to speak.
Do other senators feel the way Marvin York does? On Monday, they'll be meeting to take a vote on whether they'd like to take the sales tax off prescription drugs. But if it doesn't have the backing of the Senate leadership, chances are slim it will pass this year. Bella Shaw, Action 4.
Oklahoma City Federal Court, where Blaine County Commissioner Orville Pratt was convicted of mail fraud and extortion yesterday, and where later this summer, former Canadian County Commissioner Albert Alberts will plead guilty. Alberts has gone a step further, though. Along with a letter to the Canadian County Treasurer, Alberts has returned more than $27,000 to the county. Kickback money, Alberts says he received from various vendors during his 2.5-year term as county commissioner. In the letter, Albert says he worked out the figure, $27,697, with the FBI and the IRS. Alberts resigned last month after he was charged. Of course, he will plead guilty, but his attorney asked him to return the money, saying maybe when it's his turn to go to court, things will go a little bit better. I'm Larry Otis, Action 4 at the Federal Building.
Norman and Moore police departments, the highway patrol, a stolen Cadillac, and speeds over 100 miles an hour. The chase ended here at the underpass at Southeast 29th. This driver of the stolen car tried to split the gap between two other northbound cars. Both vehicles were forced off the road. One of them wrapped itself around this light post. The driver of that car died in a city hospital, and police were able to arrest two juveniles in the stolen Cadillac. The driver was 14 years old. The accident this morning reminded some people of one just over a year ago. A pursuant highway patrol cruiser hit another car, killing two people. But the Norman police say this case is different.
Suspects in the Cadillac that was fleeing from the Norman officer was the one that started the speeds that they were going. Our detectives attempted to keep the vehicle in sight for any other law enforcement agency that might have people available to stop these subjects.
Few chases result in innocent death, but a question of discretion remains. When does the pursuit of a criminal cost more than it's worth? Charles Schnitzer, Action 4 in Norman, Oklahoma.